We've got something going on now at the University of Iowa that you reported on a couple of days ago, and I want to bring the listeners up to date on that. I'm not sure if this is actually illegal or just unwise, but why don't you give us the background of what's going on at the University of Iowa?
Sure. So the state has a prohibition on higher education, public universities, like Iowa State, University of Iowa, for example, mandating, it's called a ban on critical race theory. It's a ban on race or sex, quote, stereotyping or scapegoating. So, for example, you can't require a student to say that all white people are bad or all men are bad or all women are bad. Now, they do offer a course that involves critical race theory, but I believe under this law that's acceptable because it's being taught as an academic theory, the same way you might teach about, Marxism or free markets or a different philosophical approach. So I think in this case that's legal. I mean, it's going on. I assume the state knows about it now. But I think it's to a broader point that, in my opinion, the university, states should have the ability to regulate to an extent what is taught at a university.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think, of course, as you know, we're on a slippery slope when we get there about what the university can teach. I understand the argument against indoctrination that we see with teaching a general survey course, because as I read the story that you published, it indicated, or at least my reading of it, was that this is kind of running a little bit close to the line, but not necessarily has crossed it.
Right. That's our understanding too. And I'm not an attorney, but that
I am.
To be...
It's not worth it.
Oh.
Don't try it.
Well, but yes, that seems to be, it's getting close to the line, maybe towing the line without crossing it.
Let's talk in general about critical race theory, because I'm sure this comes up in a lot of schools where you have reporters. What's the general concern out there right now about how far critical race theory is going?
Right. Well, you'll see this a lot in academic research. That means it's also in the classrooms, sort of injecting this idea that racism is at the center of everything. That's the basic definition of critical race theory. And so where you're seeing this is you're seeing professors who are publishing papers, teaching courses on, the inherent racism in cyber technology, the inherent racism in kidney medicine. The university at Buffalo is hosting, its Department of Surgery has a year-long or something anti-racism a seminar with Cornell West, who I think is at Princeton and Harvard. And so this is really getting into every single topic. I said this before. It's no longer just taught in a sociology class or perhaps a political theory class. This is going to be getting into math and chemistry and economics, the sort of more hard sciences. Critical race theory is going to kind of keep going into all of these different courses, and it's just going to keep spreading.
And what is the reaction of the students?
Sure. So, I think a lot of students that are uncomfortable or, let's just say oppose critical race theory, they feel like they're going to be targeted if they speak out against it. We have examples of professors who have been targeted if they question anything in the critical race theory diversity sphere. Of course, Dorian Abbott, who is going to speak about diversity. I forget if he was going to speak at MIT and he's at University of Chicago or the other way around. I'm blanking on that right now. But so I think there's this sort of culture of fear. And I think that's really what laws like Iowa's are trying to go after, sort of compelled speech. It's not about debating critical race theory. It's telling students, if you don't acknowledge white privilege, you're not going to pass this class, or you have to acknowledge white privilege if you want to be a student worker at this university.
Well, and I can also point out that because we're presenting this stuff at an earlier age in the school system, even as, down to the elementary level, by the time they get to college, they're almost already indoctrinated. This seems something that they wouldn't. I have a daughter who's a junior in high school, and when she started to explain to me white privilege, I just about fell over and had to straighten her out, first of all. But she'd figured it out or somehow attained that knowledge or information through her peers in the high school setting, and probably wouldn't have blinked an eye if she had heard it in the college level.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, and really it's just going to divide students. So there's ways to talk about racism and teach about racism in a way that is very constructive. And then there's this critical race theory idea of just dividing people. All white people are inherently privileged and evil, or all black people, they can never succeed because this country is racist. And that's the worst part, too, is it tells racial minorities that, the deck is stacked against them and they can't succeed. I mean, it is really in some ways a racist idea because you're telling racial minorities that they are not able to succeed because of...
Well, just in